Okay, so the midpoint. Okay, I want to talk to you about two things about the midpoint. Okay, so previous to this, we have mostly looked at the midpoint on more of, okay, so if you have a line segment, okay, a line segment is a chunk of a line. It's not the whole line, okay, so if we just looked at this chunk of the line, okay, so a line segment, and maybe it has the endpoints of A and another endpoint of B, and we could say that this whole line segment is 4. Okay, a midpoint is exactly half, it's exactly the middle. So if we were looking at 4,
2.
Yeah, the midpoint would be at 2, okay? And you're often going to see that the midpoint is going to be labeled as M, okay? So when you see M in mathematics, other than like M equals, okay, that's the midpoint. So if we look, the midpoint is exactly the middle. You could split this paper up in exactly the middle, okay? So we could say that this chunk is 2 and this chunk is 2. And when we did segment addition, that we kind of worked about the midpoint. The other way that you might look at the midpoint is going to be like if you look at your next page, there are graphs, and that's called the coordinate plane. And you guys have all seen the graphs before, and it's the same thing. So if we're given this graph, okay, we might have a point at A and a point at B. Okay, and this is still a line segment, it's just on a graph this time. Okay, and so you're going to be trying to find that midpoint M. Is the same thing, okay? But when stuff is diagonal, you can't just count like and say, oh, that line segment is 4, okay? Because you really have to count the grid, so to speak. So if it's up 1, and then you got to kind of count these stairs, and mine looks all jacked up, to be able to see. So you can't look at a midpoint on a grid plane for the diagonal and just assume that it's 6 or something, okay? So there is a formula, and I'm going to erase this stuff.
Isn't it basically like the slope-intercept that you taught us last year?
Kind of. So the formula is going to be, and I'm going to write it over here. So we got x1 plus x2 over 2 is y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, and that's going to equal our actual point, and we're going to say xy. Okay, so, and it looks super complicated, and it's not. Okay, so make sure you have that formula. You will not be successful today without that formula. Okay, so what this is saying, and sometimes people forget to tell you guys, this really says x sub 1. Okay, plus y sub 2, or plus x sub 2 over 2. Okay, so you can just plug in your first x's and your first y's, and that's how you're going to do that, okay? So there is a difference between this x sub 1 and this just plain x, okay? So somehow, especially you guys, you need to figure out how to annotate that x sub 1, x sub 2, versus just the plain x's and y's. Okay, so on all of these, the most thing that I can suggest for you today is going to be to label. Okay? Is going to be to label things. Okay, so we need to label these. So when we look at a general coordinate, it's x comma y. Okay, so this one is going to be x sub 1, y sub 1. X sub 2, y sub 2. If we had another one, what would it be labeled?
X sub, the same thing?
X sub 3, y sub 3.
Or
if we
X,
had another one, what would it be labeled?
X sub 4, y sub 4?
X sub 4, y sub 4. Okay, on all of these, we're just working with 2 points. Okay, so they're always going to be labeled x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay? Okay, so it says find the midpoint of each line segment with the given endpoints. Okay, so what that's saying is right here you have this coordinate, for x and y 1, and you have this coordinate for x and y 2, and they want you to find the midpoint, the m. Okay, so we're going to use our formula. So we got, and I'm plugging stuff in, so x sub 1 is what? -4 plus x sub 2, -8, and the over 2 stays there. Okay, for our y's, we got y sub 1, it's going to be -1. What's y sub 2? 7 over 2. Okay, and now you can just plug the stuff in on your calculator. Okay, but you have to use the fraction button on your calculator, and you're going to have to do them one at a time. So you could plug in on your guys' calculators -4 plus -8, and then on the bottom of that fraction type 2, and it'll outspit you a whole answer. Okay, so -4 and -8 is going to be -12 over 2, which is what? What's -12 divided by 2?
6.
-6, good. And then I got -1 plus 7 is going to give me 6 over 2. 3. And so that is our x, y. So right here we got this x, this y. Our midpoint is this x and this y. Okay, so what's the very first thing we need to do with number 2? What's the most important thing you're going to be doing today?
Finding the...
Our very first step on all of these is going to be to label. Okay, so label your coordinates, make sure you know what they are. So I got x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay, so when I look at this, I got x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. What's our x1?
7.
7 plus our x2. What's our x2, Mario? -9 over 2. y1. What's our y1, Trevor? y1. -6 plus y2. What's our y2, Hannah? 2. Okay, and this one, get your calculator. I want you guys to plug it in on a calculator so I know you know how to do it. It's going to make your life way faster.
But I don't have a fraction thing on this. 7 minus 9, but it's 2.
So before you even like do this, you can type in this part on the calculator. So like you don't have to write it all down. So 7 plus -9.
-1.
So like I'm gonna hit set. That's your final answer. That way you don't even have to do that. You know what I mean? And then you can do the other one.
Basically, it's like 6 minus 2, so it's a -4.
Okay, Trevor. You have to do it like this. So hit your fraction
I
button.
am?
And then you can type in 7 plus -9 on the top.
2?
And then put that down arrow. Put the 2 on the bottom. And so out spits -1.
Basically, went over -2. Did I just do that?
Okay, you can use like this. If you want to save a step on these calculators, you can just type this one. And then we'll just get you straight.
No, it's not
Because like some of these are as far as like but you can use that.
Wrong way to English.
Where you go get that there? Yep, that's perfect. You don't have to have those parentheses. You don't have to put them on there. Nope. You can.
I've already got the answer, Miss Henning.
Okay, hold on.
So wait, is that the answer?
Mm-hmm.
The whole answer?
Yep, so like we skipped to this step, which is kind of nice, right? It's like a lot less, right?
Alright.
So this part you can just type in on the calculator, hit the fraction button. And type in 7 plus -9. Okay, so what did you guys get for the x's?
-1.
-1. What about the y's?
-2.
-2. Perfect. Okay, so let's look at the next one. What's the first thing we're going to do?
Label.
Label. Okay, so I got x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so to set this up, I got x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay, so you got, what's our x1, Bree? $10, perfect. Plus x2 is -2 over 2. y1 is going to be -4 plus y2 is -4 over 2.
Oh, this one. -8. I know. -8. I said 8.
Okay, what did you get for the first x's?
4.
4, does somebody agree? Hmm? Do it on your calculator. What are you doing? I don't necessarily trust Mario's math.